Hello, hello. Can you hear me? What's up, Will? Thanks, Will. I'm actually just gonna... My chair is super squeaky. That's funny. All right, well... Drink. Yeah, got a couple messages. I initiated the live on StreamYard and then I really wasn't ready. So then you must have got notifications. Oh, come on. There we go. So I had broken down my FS7 Mark II to go very, very minimalistic on a car mount earlier this week. Sorry, last week. So now I'm just going to build it back up. This camera is so light when it's got nothing on it. Cool, cool. Look at that, FS7 Mark II. It's almost like an FS5, right? Or an FX6. But then you end up putting all this other gear on it. It gets pretty heavy and bulky. There we go. A little bit of a title. I can't be the only one that's lost little caps to my camera where, because it was on a car mount, I just put some gaff tape over it to cover the port. But that was my viewfinder port that I just added some tape to. Trash. More gaff tape. I'm also can't be the only one that when you take off something off your camera and you don't want to lose the screws, you just put tape over it. That's my trick. Yeah, Will, I caught some of your work, man. What you can do with that black magic and a 70-200 photo lens, Will. It was some really great stuff. To know that lens, that 70-200 that you were using on most of that stuff, is not a parafocal lens, meaning it doesn't hold focus when you zoom out. I could tell that you've used that lens a lot because you know the nuances of that lens when you zoom out and have to adjust focus again, if need be. But nice work, man. That's there. This. What? I didn't know you could modify that lens to be parafocal. That makes total sense. That's awesome, though. Like, is it a company that can make a photo lens parafocal, or are you just working some, like, YouTube wizardry and taking apart your lenses? By the way, I think I'd always thought like this should also be not only a YouTube live, but a clubhouse room. So then I could like actually talk and interact with other people. I'm just not sure on how that delay would work. If there would be a delay. Hold on, I gotta send out a tweet, let people know that I'm, live streaming. Cancel, well, actually tweet, photo, enable access, okay. Nice. So yeah, you did disassemble. So you were using the Metabones, yep, focal reducer. Yep. Gotcha. So you're essentially disassembling the Metabones adapter, if I'm reading that correctly. That's amazing. Make sure my tweet works. Cool. Tweet has been sent. I'm sure people will be flooding in now. Well, that's awesome. So, Will, does that mean any lens, let's say you put a 24 to 105 on there, does that make that parafocal as well? That's amazing. Okay, it's not 100% parafocal. Okay. What's up, Christopher? Seattle in the house. Doing this. Where's my... Like I said in one of my previous YouTube videos, it's just nice to have all of your tools in one spot. If this was before I got this little space, it would be in my bedroom and it would be a nightmare. A, trying to stay quiet if my wife was sleeping. B, just trying to find everything because everything was just scattered. What's up, Pedro? Yes, happy Sunday. So for this FS7, by the way, I had pared it down to just a body and a, what did I use? So I had the body, I had the standard kind of batteries, and E-mount to PL mount and a 20 to 120 lens. And we rigged it on a Ronin 2 car mount at Fresno State last week, using my buddy Brent at Ashland Mine Productions out of Phoenix. Look him up. He does some great car-to-car stuff. But we hired him just to get great B-roll of the campus at Fresno State, since everything's still virtual. And we wanted to really get some cool dynamic shots of not only the Fresno State campus, but the Fresno State farm, which is attached to the campus. So the base plate I use. So I was just actually using, gotta add some tape to this. I think this is a small rig. Anyways, I was using this little guy, which is just a small base plate to give me 15 millimeter rods, because we were running a Tilta Nucleus M setup to run wireless iris, focus, and zoom from inside the vehicle. And I didn't want to use my Zacuto heavy version of that, which is the VCT Pro base plate from Zacuto. So I swapped it and went with this. And then the Ronin 2 mount just mounted to the bottom of this plate, and we were able to balance it pretty easy. So yes, this is a VCT Pro base plate, but it's also, of course, a shoulder pad. I love this setup for my Sony FS7. What's up, Ben? Go back here. Go back here. Okay. So I don't have the cool like Sony back. This Sony back is expensive, but it also lets you do like raw output and can do ProRes like 422, I think. I don't have it. I just have a really inexpensive Core SWX V-mount battery adapter to go with my FS7. So far, I mean, I've had this camera for 3 or 4 years, and I haven't ran across a project that required me to have the back for time code or anything. So it was a great investment to just go with the cheaper version. And they don't get, it's always been $2,000. It's like if it's used, it's $2,000. If it's new, it's $2,000. And so unless I come across a screaming deal, I don't know if I would ever upgrade to it, but you never know. Yeah, I think this is the whatever the latest version is. I bought this when I bought the camera 3 or 4 years ago. And then, so this base plate goes on to the bottom of the camera, and then it slides into this base plate. It's a really sturdy piece. I have had some issues with tightening down my 15 millimeter rods. I'll over tighten them sometimes, and this spring will pop out of here, which is no fun. So then I have to like rethread it. But other than that, this has been a solid unit and a workhorse for me for my FS7 package. Seriously, when a player crashes into you, or this will make a group me. That's a great question, Ben. I try to save the equipment at all costs. Usually someone else is always there to get the shot from another angle, so I think the equipment is worth too much and my body. I don't want to take the hits. So I just have had that one close call in 2011 with Vernon Davis leaping over me in Candlestick Park. And thankfully he was athletic because he jumped right over me and I was kneeling down. So if that happened again today, I'd probably bail just because I'm old and I'm a little more jittery in my old age. Don't want to get hurt, you know. Okay, so then this, by the way, when you take all the plates and handles off of an FS7 Mark II, probably a regular FS7 II, it just sits flat, which I love. Little things. So yes, I know it's an FS7 Mark II. The Arri is sitting right over there, all built up. I can build this and bring over the Arri if you want. I'm starting with the Japanese cameras first, Asa, and then I'll jump over to the German ones. That's funny. By the way, so again, pared this down to go on a car mount at Fresno State last week, and spent the whole day, sunrise to sunset, capturing B-roll. And after it was all said and done, captured 1.6 terabytes of footage, B-roll that we can use for several years to come, which is why we did it. With the campus being empty, pretty much empty, it made it easy to run around with our van and the car mount and just capture all this B-roll. Ben, I don't own an AR-15, and that would probably be good on another channel, not my channel. So is that your own Arri or is that a rented NFL? So this one is my own personal Arri Amira. So I'm coming up, this will be, the next NFL season is season number 15 for me. Season number 13 and season number 14, I owned that camera and rented that camera to them almost every week. Seasons 1 through seasons 12 was all their equipment. So it's not a requirement, but it is an investment that has paid off because that camera is paid off because of the last 2 seasons. So, and I bought it used. I didn't buy it brand new, and it was a really good deal. That camera, when I bought it, had 84 hours on it, so it was pretty much brand new and about half the price. So I couldn't pass it up. Yes. So it has to be a Ronin 2. Again, so I ran this with, maybe I can pull up some pictures, but it was on, what was it, on my Instagram stories? Probably deleted by now. I should probably add them to a highlight. But it was this with my 20-120 lens. So yeah, it was pretty long, relatively heavy, would not fit on any other Ronin but a Ronin 2. And a Ronin 2 could handle an Amira probably with that 20-120 if you took off the top handle. It's got a pretty big load capacity on a Ronin 2. So an FS7 and a 20-120 Fujinon, it did a heck of a job. And so the only thing that when you're on a car mount like that, and we had a stabilizing arm with the Ronin 2, if you're all the way out at 120 mil, like you can't be on a bumpy road, you can't be out. We were out on the Fresno State farm. You're really staying pretty much 20 millimeters to 50 millimeters. Once you go past 50 millimeters, you're starting to see some shake, and depending on what kind of terrain you're on. So an Arri Amira package with 1,500 hours. If someone offered that to me today, you're probably looking at I'd probably pay $22,000 for it. Somewhere around there, I don't know, around the $22,000 mark. And if they come out with something new, which they haven't yet for the Amira line, watch that price go down, I bet. But again, in one of my previous YouTube shorts, I talked about if you're going to invest in gear, make sure you have a client on the other end who can help you pay for it, because it's a pretty big investment, as we know. What's up, Carter? Ben, I wish I had a better file organizational structure. And pretty much, so I have work stuff for Fresno State, and we're the 3 video producers on staff, and we're trying to get there because we just invested in a nice server on campus, and so we really want to get everything dialed in, especially when we get back on campus. Because we're still working from home, we're still kind of on our own organizational structure, which I will admit mine is not very efficient or smart or easy to read. So I want to pick up some of the habits of some of the other video editors on staff and and really just come up with a final scheme. And we're constantly working on that in between projects to try and nail down that, because my hope is that in 30 or 40 years, when I'm no longer at Fresno State, and I'm long gone, someone could be able to read that structure and go pull this B-roll, these 1.6 terabytes of B-roll that we just shot, and hopefully our keywording is good, and so it's a constant struggle. Yeah, so the premium license package on the Amira, I believe, gives you all of the bells and whistles, which is the 4K, 3.2K, 200 frames per second. And so when you are looking at Amiras, make sure it does have a premium license. Another thing to look for when you're buying a used Amira is which EVF model are they selling. If it's an early 2014 to 2016 kind of model, it could be sitting with the first generation EVF, which we have found out isn't the best at following kind of objects through the air. The second generation Amira EVF really works better to follow a football, at least. And so I had to double check the serial numbers before I actually completed the purchase. And then when you do buy a camera of this magnitude or price, it's always good to send it to Arri, either in Burbank or in New York, and they can do a run through and kind of like I'll call it a survey of the camera package and give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down to say, yeah, this camera's in good condition, or no, this camera needs a new sensor, which has happened to some of my colleagues. So, yeah, that's what I would say about the Amira and what you're looking for if you want to buy one. And what's funny, the Alexa Mini too, same sensor, but can go into 4.3, so now you can really play with anamorphics. On the Amira, you really can't. There's a 1.33, I think, squeeze. Anyways, if you want to do anamorphic, you got to go with an Alexa or an Alexa Mini. But that's not in my wheelhouse, so that's where the Amira really fit in. Yeah, Asa. It's also, I mean, I had other specs that I had to make sure met my kind of criteria for NFL to rent that to me. There's a new audio board, or there's a newer generation audio board on some of the newer models that the NFL required me to have. So again, I had to verify the serial numbers, like the range of serial numbers, and make sure I had the new audio board and the new EVF, or the newer EVF. And it looked like my camera was a late 2016 build, according to the serial number, and I think that was good. Anything before that, 2014, 2015 builds might have had the old stuff in it. So just, again, that's the client. I double check with the client, make sure I've got everything in order for them to rent it from me, and I got the thumbs up, and so it's been great. It's been really great. Well, this is, the ultimate question, Ben. Neistat or McKinnon, and man, I mean, Casey Neistat, daily vlogs, no one does it better, the dude, like, literally, like, that's why I really fell in love with YouTube, was Casey Neistat. And at first I didn't even know what daily vlogging was until I realized, like, wow, this guy's got a lot of episodes. And then I binged watched Casey, several years ago. And then, of course, Peter has just a whole different style. Both amazing YouTubers, big fans of both of them. But, I mean, who can pull off sunglasses inside? Casey Neistat, he wins every time, in my book. Cool. I'll keep building this. So what's cool about this is a Zacuto baseplate too. So if you are running a bigger lens, you can lock in this and slide this baseplate further back to get your center of gravity on your shoulder, depending on what kind of size lens you're using. So another great selling point to this Zacuto VCT Pro base plate. Yep, I agree. Yep. Cool. Now I need my top plate. Where did I put that? Just when you thought you had everything figured out. So there is a small rig. I think it's a small rig like cheese plate that goes up here, which then mounts. Yeah, it mounts this, which then slides in this, and it's a full thing. And I must have taken it off when we were. I'll have to check some other places, but yeah. So I have Zacuto trigger grips too, but I've really found that the shape, kind of push button, adjustable trigger arm works best for me. And this, of course, is the standard Sony FS7 Mark II trigger grip. By the way, this is my little setup here. So I do rent out my gear, some of my gear, not all of my gear. And so I rented out my lav mics and my Sennheiser shotgun and my Fujinon 18 to 55. So all three of those things is stuff that I like to use in my live stream. So that's where I went to this cheap Sony microphone with a magic arm. But I could still pull it off with the A7 III up here with an 11 to 16 PL lens. Come on. So this shape arm, you just push the button and then it adjusts. So I really like it. There's that. And until I find that top plate, I don't know if I can build much more. Yeah, the push button is amazing. I'm going to do any live stream stuff for Fresno State. At the moment, no plans. But again, we're all still working from home, probably until this fall. And so I do all of my editing at home. I do most of my work at home until I need to go to campus and then shoot stuff. And so we just announced an in-person graduation, which is amazing. But with all that comes a lot of video production needs. And so we're churning out content for, if we can only have 8 ceremonies in person, there's still a lot of like affinity groups and other things like that are going to be virtual. So they need a whole bunch of video content. And so the team is working hard to churn all that content out in the next couple weeks because that's when graduation is. So just a lot of stuff to do. Yes. Can the side handle part rotate also? So the push button, of course, goes up and down. And then just part of the Sony trigger grip is that it does have a release button to adjust your wrist rotation. So yes, but other than that, it cannot turn that way. That is the difference between it and the Zacuto trigger grip arm. So this one, it's hard to see, is round, and so it can rotate. It just does not connect to, this one doesn't connect to, this is just arri rosettes on both ends. So it's not really made for the Sony. I use this for the Amira. So this one can rotate kind of this way, if that makes sense. But again, this particular trigger grip is not designed for the FS7, but it is round, so it could do that. Yep. I like that wooden camera, small rig, Zacuto, Shape. I mean, to me, they're all great companies, and I've used all of them, and for just different little pieces that just really perfect, or at least they complete my kits, you know. Thanks, Ben. Ben, are you still at with community? That's awesome, though. Yeah, so there's a full-blown like live production that I'm not 100% a part of for our graduation. For like graduations in past and for this upcoming one, I will be running around capturing B-roll for the university with a Canon C70, which we just got, and a DJI RS2 gimbal, which I'm excited to try out. We just got all that. So, and then there's going to be some hard cameras. Our hard cameras are going to be like C200s with 70 to 200 servo zoom lenses and 1.4 times extenders. So there's some really cool things that we brought in because I've never done an outdoor graduation. It's always been inside our basketball arena. So now it's going to be in our football stadium in morning and evening ceremony. So it's going to be beautiful for light, weather permitting, knock on wood. But yeah, yep. Nice. Answer your other one. So, oh yes. You're going to live with a camera that costs the same as a family car. What is your cheapest camera and what drone do you own? So, cheapest camera. Got to be a GoPro. Everybody's got a GoPro, right? I think I have 3 GoPros in that case, or that chest right there. I think I have a Hero 4. I think I have a Hero 5. And then I have the GoPro Max, cheapest camera. And the drone, I have 2 drones. I have a DJI Phantom 4 Pro. Yeah, Phantom 4 Pro version 1, which, by the way, is amazing. It's a 1-inch sensor drone, beautiful images, and has only been updated once in 4 years. And it's still a Phantom 4 Pro version 2, with just some minor updates. Sensors still the same, lens is still the same. And so that's probably my best DJI purchase. Anybody who's ever bought a DJI product knows that it's going to get refreshed or it's going to be outdated relatively soon, which unfortunately is the case unless you bought a DJI Phantom 4 Pro 4 or 5 years now without a major update to the Phantom series. So I'm sure it's coming. It's got to come. And I also own a DJI Mavic Air, like an original one. So I actually use the Phantom 4 Pro most. I'll use the Mavic Mini when I travel or something for personal stuff. Yes. Yeah. So, yeah. I also own two Sony mirrorless cameras. One that is capturing here is the Sony A7 III, and then I also have a Sony A7R Mark II, old school, 42 megapixels. It's a close race there, Ben, and you know this. DJI seems to be winning that race, though. I don't know. Just it seems like it's every week with a new one, which is great. It's just great, but it is kind of frustrating if you drop $1,000 on a drone or $1,500 on a drone, and then 4 months later they come out with another one with a bigger sensor. And so, I think, to me, Apple kind of spaces those out a little bit better than DJI, but they're still, both companies churn things out. Let me set this aside. I think Asa wanted German cameras. So yeah, German all the way, right? Well, and Japanese, Fujinon. So, yeah. So the light bar to my right, it's a good question. I'm going to read it to you. Yang Nuo Digital. Definitely a Chinese company, the YN360. It's an RGB. Oops. So I think I can, add different colors. Its native is 5600 Kelvin, and then you can put on the tungsten magnet. And it just ran out of batteries, so. Yes, showing the people what they want. The Amira. Yeah. And this is the setup. If you ask me tomorrow to go shoot an interview, a doc interview, run and gun, sports, whatever you want, this is the setup I'm going to bring. Funny note, though. So I don't know if Will is still on here. Anyway, so Will, looks like via Instagram, just purchased like a 2/3 inch ENG lens. And so if I shoot football, that's what I primarily use. This is a Super 35 lens. It's great. It's a cinema lens. But for football, to get more of a zoom range, we use the old school 2/3 inch B4 ENG zoom lenses. And we have an adapter from Arri that allows us to take that 2/3 inch sensor lens and blow it up to a Super 35 sensor. Anyways, so that lens I'm picking up tomorrow morning because it was in Jackson, Mississippi for the past month and a half. I rented it to my buddy Dean for a show about Deion Sanders and his new college football team that he's the head coach of. So that's where that lens has been. And I actually will meet up with Dean tomorrow and pick up that lens. So again, it's nice to rent some of this stuff. Never had any issues. I mean, you'll never really see posts that get into too much detail when I'm traveling for the NFL, just because of their social media policy. But you should never see a picture of my credential. You should never. There's a handful of things that you won't see in the NFL, and if you do, that's when you could potentially get in trouble. But they've got some pretty strict rules. Fresno State, so far so good. I'm just an employee that likes to make content. Yeah, no, so far not gonna go with the OnlyFans page. Yes, yes, the comment wasn't true if the NFL is watching. That's funny. Yeah. So and another thing about the DJI. So Dean, who I'm gonna meet up with tomorrow, who lives in Modesto, which is not too far from me here in Fresno. Um, he crashed his DJI Phantom 4 Pro in Abu Dhabi because he was working on a project for the UFC on Fight Island. Anyways, so he crashed. I think it's still in the ocean, but he had some extra batteries and purchased a new Mavic Pro, I think. Um, Mavic Pro 2. Anyway, so he's also got some of my old batteries that didn't land in the ocean that I had lent him to go to Fight Island with, and then some other stuff that he no longer needs because he doesn't have a Phantom 4. So, yeah, Dean's a great guy. Yeah, I have a generic contract that I have kind of came up with, which covers all my bases for my gear insurance. So I can't rent out every piece of gear because then it doesn't make sense for me. So like the Amira is not on the list to rent to other people on through my insurance company, but I think I have a cap of like up to $12,000 currently that I can rent out to other people. Of course, I can use all this stuff for any projects that I'm on, but it requires like a secondary policy when you're renting gear to other people, and if that gear never returns, you're covered for up to so much. And so, to me, to make it worth my while every year to pay that insurance premium, it just makes it cheaper if I say, well, I'm not going to rent this to anybody else because I use this for other clients and I don't want to rent it out to anybody else. But lenses and anything else, like microphones, like I said, so I've got 2 microphones and a lens working in Texas this week for another buddy here in town who's in Texas on another shoot that just doesn't have the gear that I have and wanted to rent it. So yeah, no software, just me. I have a file on my computer with all the signed agreements and then the invoices that are generated through that kind of rental income for tax purposes. Carter, graduating in a few weeks from college. Congratulations. Any tips for someone getting into the industry that isn't necessarily interview related? And industry, Carter, you're talking about like sports, sports production, sports stuff, or do you want to get into like college athletics or college video production? Let me know. Yeah, no, Asa, yeah, I could easily send it to you. I think I Googled it and then I just tweaked some things. And as long as you have something in place, especially with my insurance company, it seems that it was, as long as it covers my bases, and even just making sure that your insurance, like, So if I rented this lens to someone, let's say I rent it to Asa, and then it never comes back, then you got to make sure that is covered. If this lens is sitting in this office and this office is not locked, if this lens is sitting in my car and the car is not locked, those are all little check boxes that you have on these insurance policies that either make it more expensive or less expensive. And so some of the things I have is, it's like it could be stolen from an unlocked car. It could be rented and never come back. I'm covered for a good chunk of my gear for that. So. Look at Ben. Love it. Know what you don't know and set those expectations with your clients. Yep. Yeah. I mean, Ben, that's a great point. Like, never pretend you know everything, because no one knows everything. And honesty is always going to, earn the trust and respect of any potential future clients. Yeah. I'm horrible with admin work as well. And then the other reason why too I don't rent out a whole bunch of things is that kind of like that paper trail that you need to create, and it just got to cover your bases, And Carter too, when I left college, right before I left, that's when I found the NFL Films internship. In 2006. So I had graduated in the summer of 2006. 1 week later, I started the internship at NFL Films, and that was the launching pad for my career with the NFL and being a freelance camera operator, cinematographer for them. So, and there's so many different ways to kind of break into any industry, but the way that I know is through internships. Yep, trying to find a parafocal lens, servo. Are there two Carters in this? That's crazy. I see two different pictures, so I'm assuming they're two different people, but maybe it's the same person. Racking my brain trying to find a parafocal lens, servo, or ready for external motors for shooting Major League Soccer. Soccer is tough because that you can't get too close to the action, right? So. Depending on, I'd love to know what camera you're shooting on, what sensor you need to fill, because the best for sports for me are the 2/3 inch ENG B4 lenses, and then you run adapters to fill the larger sensor cameras like this one. But there can be only one Carter. I like it. FS7 is what we shoot on. Cool. Yeah, I actually haven't. So Matt Desmond started that Sports Creative Slack, seems like years ago, and that's the only, like, I'm not a Slack user, but I tried to get into that, and there was a lot of great resources in that Sports Creative Slack group. So yes, check that out. Other Carter. This Carter is shooting with an FS7 from Major League Soccer. So what I did, the Las Vegas Bowl, I shot with, this was 2018. And I think it's like one of the only video clips that I have on here. So I might try and add it. Let me see. Share video file. Oh, lost another battery. Yeah, my kick light. So I think, yeah, I'll mute that. So FS, by the way, this is the 11 to 16 on the FS7. Then all this other stuff from the game is a 24 by Fujinon, 2/3 inch, 4K B4 lens attached to an IBE Optics 1.4 times extender, and I set the FS7 into center crop mode, and that's how this worked. And I don't even know the math on what that focal range is, but you can see you can get in there with some tight stuff. And so I really liked that setup. If you want to get way out on the field, some of this stuff is just C100 stuff, but all this close-up stuff is FS7M2 with the 24 by Fujinon, and it could be a 22 by, it could be a 23 by, just how far do you want to get out there. The 24 by is the newest and the most expensive, but you can rent any one of those lenses. I have a 21 by that Canon makes that I love, and so having that 1.4 times extender, which again IBE Optics makes, it's a B4 to E mount. Sorry, it's a B4 to PL mount. So I had to run the IBE B4 to PL, then I had to run the PL to E mount, and there was no back focus issues. It was really, really a good setup. But remember, a 2/3 inch sensor lens still won't even fill a center crop on the FS7. So you need that 1.4 times extender to blow the image up just a little bit more to fill that center crop image, which is essentially like a Super 16. Cool. Yep. And that's the 24 by. Love that lens. I actually, so again, reached out to Fujinon before that game and asked if they had a 24 by to test out, and I used that lens and I tested it out in 2018 at the Las Vegas Bowl. So Carter, one tip when looking for B4 ENG lenses, make sure they're 2/3 inch sensor lenses. You're going to find some nice cheap ones, but they might be 1/3 inch sensor lenses, or they might be 1/2 inch sensor lenses. Make sure it says 2-3 inch, because that's essentially the bigger of the sensors, which is what you're going to need if you're shooting on an FS7. It might be different on a Micro Four Thirds, so again, it's just kind of like a math problem to try and figure out how do you fill the frame and what kind of adapters do you need. But yeah, search eBay for 2/3 inch B4 lenses, and you're going to find Canon. You're going to find a lot of 17 bys, which are great. But again, just know that the higher that number is, 17, 18, 22, 23, 24, is the longer that focal range will be. Yeah. That, like I said, it would be that two. If I was going to try and find that lens, it'd be 2/3 inch, 2, /3 quotations for inch, B4 lens, zoom lens. Plug them on my hard drives. Ben, yes, the fruit stand. By the way, Ben, I've always wanted to make a documentary about working at the Apple Store. Me and Ben worked at the Apple Store. I worked there for 5.5 years. Ben, I think you were, I don't know, 7, 8 years. Um, it is, to me, it's the islands of misfit toys. It's where all the creative people in town work, and the most creative people I've ever met, and smartest people I've ever met. Even though I work at a university, it still was the Apple Store, like hands down. And I love those 5.5 years of hanging out with people like Ben and just talking about tech and creative things and the musicians that work there. And I mean, Ben, Jacob Henson, are you kidding me? I don't know if you've seen him on Instagram. He's like an international like rock star living in Spain. It's crazy. And so I always thought like just one Apple Store, and look at what, I don't know, the launch pad it created for so many different creative people. 5, okay. So light loss is a thing. So you figure it's about 2.25 stops with the 2 times. But with my B4 to PL arri, it's like 2.25 stops. So the 1.4, you're probably looking at about a stop and a half. And no, you should never. So another side note, nugget of information. Most of those B4 lenses have a sweet spot at 5.6. So you want to live right on 5.6. Don't go, if you open it up more, now you're going to really muddy the image when you're going to a camera like this or bigger sensor. 5.6 is usually the sweet spot on most of all those lenses. So I would try and keep it at a 5.6 the whole day, especially that Las Vegas Bowl was great because it was a 12 o'clock kickoff. So it was in the middle of the day, had enough light, just dial into NDs to get my exposure correct. And it was really great. So the 1.4 is going to kill some light, but it's not going to kill it if you are trying to shoot the entire frame, which means you're going to need like a 2.25 stop light loss with like a 2.5 times extender. I don't even know what the math is on it, but don't try and fill the Super 35 sensor. Just try and fill the center crop sensor. And as we know, on the FS7, it's still a great image. You won't get 4K out of it, but again, if you want your high frame rates, the FS7 doesn't shoot over 60 frames in 4K. So I would shoot 180 frames, 120 frames on an FS7 in, of course, 2K or 1080. Yes. How's my dad? My dad is good. He's some semi-retired. He works a couple days a week at as a testing proctor in town, which he loves. Anything that you can think of, skate videos. I mean, I was big into skate videos as a kid starting high school, and then and when I say skate videos, I mean rollerblading videos. So sorry if there's any skateboarders out there. So rollerblading videos, because I wasn't cool enough to skateboard. And so watching those and then trying to emulate those and making my own with, of course, like my dad's handy cam. We've come a long way. And then when I was a senior in high school, this is where I'm dating myself now, right? So the first iMac that had FireWire, so it was an iMac DV Graphite Special Edition, which had a FireWire 400 port on the side of it. I'm sure you know it well, Ben. I got that as my graduation gift from my family, and that's what introduced me to iMovie, and I was blown away. I actually had been using iMovie prior to in high school. It just came out, and it blew my mind because I was going from VCR to VCR when I was coming up in the rollerblading skate world. I mean, and these were just films of me and my buddies. Like no one watched them. But when I saw iMovie, I was like, whoa, this is cool. So it was a high school thing that set me on that path. Yep. Absolutely. I mean, when those bubble iMacs came out, it's so reminiscent of what just got released, right? So Apple, of course, came out with new colorful iMacs, and it just brought me back to those old 1998 commercials of the little bubble iMacs that are very colorful, and they're spinning around. I can still picture it today. I can still picture the magazine ads for the new iMac. And then it wasn't that much longer that the graphite DV special edition came out with FireWire 400, which blew me away. I think I still have some of those old hard drives that are, I plug them in with 4 different adapters and they're all clicking. And so most of them are shot, but it was fun times. And that's when graduated in the year 2000. In 2001, I got my first copy of Final Cut Pro. Never looked back. Been using Final Cut Pro since 2002, maybe it was. I was at Allen Hancock College in Santa Maria, and I think someone gave it to me, like illegally, of course. Or maybe we got it as students, I forget. But Final Cut Pro 1, and I could do green screen, and I was like, what? So then I was doing green screen projects at Allen Hancock College, and then I transferred to film school a couple years later. Look at this. See, that's why we call him MacBenTosh, yeah. Tech Source. Like, dang, Ben. I mean, you were in high school, right, Ben? I mean, I think you're younger than me. How long have you owned the Amira, and how many more years do you estimate you can get out of it before you're forced to upgrade to something else? And Ty, thanks for the question. Not very often am I asked for 4K delivery, and especially like the number one client I have with the Amira is the NFL, and we're shooting 1080p because of the high frame rates, and it's also just their whole infrastructure is every stadium shooting footage after every quarter to their headquarters. So it's going to take a lot for anybody to jump to 4K in that realm. Of course, everybody else is going to 4K, right? But it is so funny that the client that pays that rents this camera from me does not want 4K at the moment, which is fine with me, because everything just gets that much bigger, file size, card size. It's going to be tough. And this camera, of course, is like a 3.2K sensor. Then it upscales to UHD, so it's not a true 4K camera. I'm assuming the next generation of Amira would be a true 4K camera. But even this lens, so the 20 to 120, has a different image circle than the 19 to 90, which is its bigger brother, even though it's smaller. So the image circle on the 20 to 120 doesn't fill the full 3.2K sensor. So if I was to shoot in UHD on this camera with this lens, I'm going to see a little vignetting around 20 millimeters. If I take this off and put its big brother, the 19 to 90, which is double the price, it's going to fill the 4K. So it has a bigger image circle on the 19 to 90 than the 20 to 120. I was in it for the price, so I got this for half the price of a 19 to 90, and don't need UHD all that often on this camera, so it's fine with me. Same thing with our adapter, B4 to PL adapter, truly doesn't fill the 4K sensor of an Amira or Alexa Mini. And so that now you're going to run into some other issues. So if you start needing to shoot football in 4K, which hasn't happened yet, and I don't know when it's going to happen, now you're talking about needing bigger lenses to fill the full sensor. So it's not going to be pretty whenever that day comes. But again, 2014 is when this camera came out. 2014 was the year the NFL started shooting with these. And so, what is that? 11 years? No, sorry, 8 years coming up on. So I bet I've got a couple more years with this at least, as long as it is up and running still, you know. Dang, Ben, you are much younger than me. What's up, Gabe? Yeah, thanks for the question. Manual focusing while filming sports. It's like a muscle memory kind of thing. Maybe you could see this here. So it's probably out of focus, but this is kind of where my hands live. So I'm going to zoom, and then I'm going to focus, usually with my ring finger or my middle finger. And so it's, again, this is where it helps to know which lens you're using and be really comfortable with that. This lens focuses different than my 2/3 inch sensor lenses, which focus different than other, still lenses. So hopefully you heard that. I know it's kind of far away. But yeah, so it's kind of just, it's literally your middle finger and your ring finger just working that focus. And like I said, the 2/3 inch, do I have that one here? I don't have the 23 by because I rented that out, but so this is a Canon. If you want to search, this is a really good lens. This is actually, so it's a Canon B4. And when I say B4, that's a B4 mount. It's hard to see there. And it fills a 2/3 inch sensor. This one was cool. It was kind of like a cinema zoom version of their ENG lens. So you can search for a Canon 21 by, HJ21X is what we would call it. And you'll find a version like this, which is kind of like this cine version. And you'll find one with like a servo rocker and just a normal looking 21 by. This one's cool because it has all the focus gears on it, on focus, iris, and zoom. So it's kind of like I don't know, I call it a pro mod. I got this lens for $900 on eBay. And it wasn't until I started shooting with it that I realized it has a slight issue with the manual focus. It kind of hiccups when I get closer to infinity, but it's a really, really great lens. Yeah, it opens up to a T2.1, but again, I like to leave it at 5.6 and shoot the whole game at 5.6 if I can, and just dial in the ISO and NDs. But yeah, so if I bought it for $900 and I don't use it much anymore because I have a 23 by, let me know if anybody wants to buy this. I'll sell it to you for less than $900. Wheeling and dealing over here. Shoot me a DM. I'd love to help someone out who could use a lens like that. What's the conversion? Oops. What's the conversion on the adapter for 5.6. I don't think it matters about the f-stop that you're at. So the conversion is going to happen. So on the barrel, this lens, it's probably, you can't even see it, but it'll say, so it starts at a 7.5 millimeter. And then so 7.5 times 21 should be 158 because that's the last number on this barrel. That's why we call it a 21 by. So 7.5 to 158 millimeters should be 21 times zoom. For example, a 20 to 120 is a 6 times zoom. 20 times 6 is 120. You didn't think you'd be doing math today, did you guys? So when I shoot this lens on my Amira, it is not a 7.5 millimeter to 158 millimeter. You have to add an adapter to make it fit on my Amira. That adapter is an Arri B4 to PL adapter, which has glass elements in it that magnify this lens to fill that sensor. And it's, I don't know the exact number, but it's about 2.5 times. So if I do quick math on my hair, so let's say it's 2.5, just for fun. 2.5 times 7.5. By the way, Ben, you'd be happy I'm using Spotlight. So 18.75. So if my math is correct on that adapter, which I doubt it is, I think it's like 2.25. I don't know. Somewhere in there. But I'm going to say 2.5 times. If I put this piece of glass on there and it enhances it 2.5 times, instead of being 7.5 on the wide end, it is 18.75. And by the way, you're losing like 2.25 stops of light when you put that piece of glass on here. And then we go to the all the way zoomed in is 158. This is why these lenses are so amazing. 395 millimeters. So essentially an 18 to 400 lens. That's only this big. You cannot, this is where physics comes in. You cannot get a lens that is this size, that is a Super 35 lens that goes from 18 to 400. It just doesn't exist. You have to bend light and get it into a lens and fill a sensor. And so this is where adapters save the day, you know? Oh, yeah. So again, sorry, I mean the aperture, yes. So if you're at a 5.6, you're kind of like at an f11 when you're talking about depth of field. Because if you are talking to 2.25 stops of light, 2.5 times, you know. So, yeah. When it comes to, so your focusing actually becomes easier because it's not so shallow. You do lose light 2.5 times. 2.25. I really wish I knew that. I wish someone from Arri could help me out and give me the exact numbers, because you start Googling it, it's really hard to find the answer of the exact amount of light loss you get from the Arri branded B4 to PL adapter. I know it's not exactly 2 stops of light, but it's something slightly over 2. But yeah, I don't know if you could hear that. So just a little bit of play in that focus. But if you've ever watched my YouTube video when I broke down the Jorge Reyna quarterback video, I talked about this lens because I shot the whole football game with it. One of my best shots was actually the last play of the game, which was an interception, unfortunately. But I got it all with this lens. And so once you start shooting with it, you'll realize, you'll still start to figure out like where that little play is. Gabe, I think we're in some interesting times that we live in. There's people like me who like to give out information for free and for any industry, right? And so, again, I wouldn't be where I am today without film school because I knew nothing. I mean, zero about film, the film industry, how to load film, how to capture film, how to expose film. We're talking about 16 millimeter, 35 millimeter motion picture film. Didn't know anything about lenses. So I needed that foundation to get me where I am today, because when I walked in the door as an intern, I knew I kind of had a leg up, because I knew, like, I was loading film as an intern, which had never been done before. I was shooting video stuff when I was an intern. I don't know. So having that knowledge, I think, helped me, and I wasn't, I think it was 25 when I graduated college. So, 24. So I wasn't too young, a little bit more mature than the, 21 or 22-year-old, but I took my time going through college, and junior college. So Asa, yes, this is a parafocal, lens. Most of these ENG B4 mount lenses are going to be parafocal. What you will see, you'll be parafocal, but you'll have a good chunk of lens breathing, because again, to have that kind of zoom range, you're going to see some breathing. So you might, let's say you're zoomed in at 158 millimeters and you focus from close focus to infinity, you'll watch the elements will move and you'll see a slight zoom in or zoom out when you're focusing. That's going to happen with all of those B4 ENG lenses. Some of the newer ones, probably not as much, but it's going to be there. It's again, I think if you saw my YouTube video on the 25 to 300, now we're talking about a lens that doesn't breathe as much when you zoom and focus. So it's kind of a give and take. What are you willing to give up? Because there's no perfect lens. Yep. Yeah. And again, I didn't have a network. The internship created those connections that I needed. But again, you didn't to get an NFL Films internship when I went there, you didn't even need to be in college. You just applied and you see if you got accepted. Some internships back then, you needed to get college credit. I did not have to be in college to be an intern. I had just graduated college and I was an intern. So some of those opportunities are still out there, and it's tough. College is not getting any cheaper. It goes up and up and up every year, which is a whole nother debate. But it works for some. It doesn't work for others. You just got to find your path, and it might even be, starting college and saying, let me try a couple things. And that's one of the best things about college. There's no other time in your life where you get to have that kind of freedom to really do what you want and play and experiment with your craft, and decide where you want to be in the future. Those are 4 years, or in my case, 6 years of really honing what you think you want to do. And I went to a super expensive art school, which I don't recommend. If unless somehow you come up with a load of cash, but I'm still paying for it today. Graduated in 2006. Yeah. So, it's just not, it wasn't cheap. But I wouldn't be where I am today without it. So it's a tough call. Look at Tyler coming in with the fire question. Tyler, I think we even talked about this on your podcast, which you should still be doing, by the way. I've been waiting for new episodes. I just played with a Ronin 2 on a car mount. If I had an unlimited budget, there's this camera system called a shot over camera system, which takes an Amira or an Alexa Mini like this with a 25 to 30 or a 30 to 300, sorry, 25 to 300, 30 to 300, 50 to 1000 lens and puts it on the nose of a helicopter, I'd buy the helicopter, I'd buy the shot over camera, and I'd hire a helicopter pilot. Great question. Yeah, no, Gabe, you're right. I buy these lenses because I use these lenses for clients like the NFL, and if there's focus breathing, there's focus breathing. No one's ever said, "Man, that breathes too much. Let's not use it." No, it has never come up. It's just more when you start getting into $30,000 lenses and $40,000 lenses. It goes away, and it magically goes away with the price and the engineering. That's great. Yeah, that again, like that's where I started in high school. Was just again, I started with skate videos and then dabbled a little bit in animation, and then really saw the path forward when I was a senior in high school, and then I went to junior college for a couple years. And by the way, if you could find a junior college like I did in Santa Maria, California, back then, I would assume it's still around. It's a community college with somewhat of a film and video program, and that really helped dial it in at not that much of a cost, which was great. And so once I got through those 2.5 years, that's when I decided to transfer and apply to Art Center. I haven't done any work with Jason Watt or Troy, but I do follow their work. They've been killing it, both of them. You know, they seem to have gotten in more to the narrative film space, which is what they wanted to do, which is great. You know me, I'm always kind of just the sports nut, and love documentaries too. So nonfiction films for me, and they've really found their calling kind of in the narrative space. And I wish, you know, hopefully they keep killing it. You're right. Well, now I'm running out of cameras, but I can bring one up. By the way, before I put this stuff away, focus charts. Look at that. See? When you start getting into lenses that zoom, now we need to get into back focus adjustments, and having a focus chart available to you will help you fine tune back focus. And so on a lens like this, the back focus is always towards the back of the lens, which I'm completely throwing off right now. It's usually the same setting. It's in the same area as the macro setting on your lens. And so the trick is, if I was going to set the back focus on this lens, or if I was going to set the back focus on this 20 to 120, which it has, probably easier to see it on the 20 to 120. It's actually pretty hard to see, but there is a little thumb screw there that you undo. So I would set this on a tripod about 20 feet away from the focus chart. I would zoom in. I would set my focus as usual. What's cool about a focus chart, I don't know if you see it on here. You see how that, I don't know if you're seeing it, but see how it kind of comes in and out? And when it gets closer to the center of the focus chart, That's how you know you're in focus, right in there. So I would zoom in, set my focus, again, having this about 20 feet away. Then I would zoom out, and that's where my back focus comes in. So I zoom out, unscrew that thumb, and just kind of play. It's just a little up and down movement that shifts the back focus. And I want that back focus to do the same thing, but now I'm zoomed out. So one trick that I use is using the EVF focus assist punch in. So I'll zoom out, I'll do the focus assist punch in, which can be done on an Amira or an FS7, whatever camera you have usually has like a EVF punch in. And then I play with that back focus until it does the same thing where the focus comes down to the point. And then tighten that thumb screw down, and now you have set your back focus. There's also a great video by Fujinon, really quick and dirty, couple minutes from one of their Fujinon shooters. It has another great video about back focus. So if you're getting into zoom lenses or cinema zoom lenses, back focus is a must. You'll know your back focus is out when you're shooting a game and everything's looking in focus, and then you zoom all the way out and everything's soft. You need to adjust your back focus. Sometimes you'll see it in live sports. If you'll watch TV and you go, wait, why is that soft when the camera zooms out? Well, usually the director's probably yelling at him like, adjust your back focus. Okay. Yeah, you kind of were. It's okay. Yes, yeah, I know, Gabe. This is not sponsored by any means, but feel free to sponsor me, Fun Leader, if you want to. This is like $80, and this is the lens. It's just a fun 18 millimeter pancake lens. It is set. It is locked in at an f8. The focus is set to 0.8 millimeters away to infinity because it's an f8. So almost everything's in focus. It's essentially a street photography lens. I found it just fascinating because it's so cheap and so light. And I actually wanted to do like a vlog with it just for fun, but haven't gotten around to it. E-mount. Look at that thing. It's just super small, lightweight. Don't even have to think about anything. Stick this is an A7R Mark II. Stick this in your backpack and have a field day. Look, Ben, I built another camera. This is that. Yeah, I love the college discussion going on. What's funny, I work at a college. But I work at one of the most inexpensive colleges in the state of California, which I'm proud of. Doesn't have a film school, but we do have a media communication journalism department and a whole bunch of other degrees. But private education definitely costs a lot in this country. Yeah. And what's funny, like, no one at my school wanted the path that I wanted. Like, no one knew how to get me there. I can remember having the conversation with my department chair about my future hopes and goals, and they had no idea, where I should go, who I should contact. So it was just a lot of legwork on my end. Could I have done that right out of high school? Yeah. Would I have had the experience? No. Would I have gotten an internship with zero experience with film, knowing that when I went to NFL Films as an intern, they were still shooting 16 millimeter film, and I knew 16 millimeter film, I knew 35 millimeter film, and so it was just a snowball effect that essentially, without one, I couldn't have the other in my mind. Absolutely, absolutely, Ben. Ben, did you go to Fresno State? Yep. Can't teach creativity, but yeah. Yeah. Yep. What's funny, so like everybody has a demo reel except for Dom. I don't have a demo reel. If you go to my website, you'll just see finished projects, um, and know that the finished projects um, were usually directed, produced, shot, and edited by me. Of course, some of the Fresno State stuff, of course, is all done with a team. But we kind of take on the projects as a video producer, and then work with the director of marketing and some writing folks to really nail down some of our stories. But I've never had a demo reel. I just have finished projects, which is harder. Like, if let's say you're a B camera operator on a Netflix show, you might need some demo reels. But if you are in charge of the DP of the entire show, to me, that on a resume and a link to that show's trailer would suffice in my world. But what do I know? I'm the old guy who doesn't make demo reels. The other reason I don't make demo reels, I don't own the footage that I shoot when it comes to the NFL. That is not my footage. That is their footage. They just pay me to shoot it, and so they own the rights to it, and I'm fine with that. So can I make a demo reel of my footage that I shoot for NFL Films? No, because it's not mine. Can I send you a link of the Super Bowl show that I was a part of because I shot a certain camera angle? Absolutely, and I'll list which camera is mine. But I don't own that footage. Ty, yes. The ergo rig. So it's funny, I did a review of the ergo rig on this YouTube channel. If you haven't watched it, check it out. But I actually don't use it every game, because to me the ENG B4 lenses that we use with the Amira are not too heavy. And when you're shooting an NFL game, there are breaks. I mean, what is it? Every 8 seconds there's a play, and then there's about 40 seconds of in between time. Am I constantly shooting from the first kickoff to the end? No. But so there is some breathing room in there for at least what I shoot. I'm not a part of the live broadcast. I'm just getting the creative stuff. So if I had to shoot from whistle to whistle, I'd probably throw the ergo rig on. But I use that if it's going to be a long day. And to me, the football games with the gear that we use is not a long day. But I'm glad that I have it, because if I ever got on a reality show, or if I did some long form documentary run and gun, I would use it every day. Yep. Editing stand. You can see my standing desk back here. Adjustable, which was cool. Yeah, the Ergo rig is really helpful. Of course, I've also done a review of the Easy Rig Mini Max. Love that. Again, for long. Again, the documentary stuff that I do could be a long day, so then I'll break out those. I don't own an Easy Rig. I just own an Ergo rig, so I'll rent an Easy Rig. Yep. Got to start somewhere, Gabe, right? Gabe, where do you live? Because it could also be handy to get in touch with the production companies that are near you. Again, like Ben said earlier, you're going to learn more on the job than potentially in the classroom. So knowing those production companies that are around you may help, get on their radar. I think it's different for everybody. Gabe, what's the value of education versus experience? I got experience in my education, if that makes sense. So when you go to Art Center, it's every weekend we're shooting short film, spec commercial, music video. We're shooting 35 millimeter. We're renting our cameras from Claremont Camera in Hollywood. We're getting our grip truck from Wood and Nickel. It was all down in LA, and it was doing it just like you would do it if you weren't in college. So, the experience happened because I was at school. And then in turn, that helped, I think, earn some trust when applying for an internship. I shoot more. We have the liberty to shoot more now. The film counts in my career from 2007 to 2013 were pretty rigid. Like, don't go over. If they sent me 7 rolls, I was going to shoot 7 400-foot rolls of 16 millimeter. And if I went over that, I'd get a phone call. And I've talked about this before, but it was if I could shoot a game in 6.5 rolls, and so I had 200 feet left, I would save that 200 feet, or at least my AC would save that 200 feet for the next game. And so now the next game I could technically shoot 7.5 rolls because I had a half roll that was counted in the previous game, and then I would shoot that short end at the next game. And so throughout the season, you could build up a handful of short ends if you were working with the same AC, which I commonly did. A gentleman by the name of Patrick Moore was my AC for almost a decade in San Francisco and Oakland. And so he knew what to do when I came back at the end of the game with half a roll. We were saving it. We're saving it for the next week. Rhode Island. I've never been to Rhode Island. Yeah, so Boston, I'm sure, is chock full of production companies, and really it's trying to figure out but I would guarantee there's someone doing some production work potentially closer than Boston. Just going to take a little bit of research. And there's also there's TV stations, but I never got into that world of live TV. To me, they're kind of two separate things. There's the creative kind of filmmaker, documentary, narrative track, and then there's live television, and those are two separate things. And so you got to decide, do you want to go down the live television route, Do you want to go down what I would think in my mind, the more long form creative kind of track? You'd get some phone calls. So Asa, so you'd have this half roll of film, and in 2000, from 2007 to 2013, when I was there, or when I was shooting film until we switched to the Amira in 2014, I had only heard just, little stories here and there of people trying to do this. The problem with that is that now you're potentially shooting those short ends on cameras that aren't yours, and film that isn't yours, and then you're going to pay another company to process it and develop it. So now to me, it would never be worth it, because I would have that camera from week 1 until the Super Bowl, in my house. It's their camera, and I have that lens, and I'd have that camera. Not once did I ever shoot for anybody else. The temptation wasn't even there because it wasn't even worth it. No one was shooting 16 millimeter film from 2007 to 2013, unless you were NFL Films. So there was no client that was really wanting you to do it. There's nothing. So it sat in my closet Monday through Saturday, and then if I traveled on Saturday, I'd take it and shoot on Sunday, bring it back Monday, sit in my closet. My AC would handle all the film, so he would have all the film shipped to him, and he would handle the short rolls. Because there would be weeks maybe I would shoot in San Francisco, then I'd travel to Seattle, and someone else would come into San Francisco or Oakland, and so then that person would potentially have my short ends. So the AC held onto the film, and I held onto the camera and lens. But again, I mean, in those years to process and develop 16 millimeter film, it just wasn't cheap. And so NFL Films kept it all in house. So they have their own processing, own developing, own telecine. Everything is in house, and it was in house and still is in house at NFL Films. So there's no outsourcing whatsoever from the film days to now when it comes to the digital realm. Oh yes, that would have been nice. Until I would drop a lens, and yeah, I wouldn't be here. That would be a short career. Yeah. Yeah. So I would, if that's something you want to get into, seek it out, and just, production assistant, see if those companies have internship programs over the summer. It couldn't help, that's what's so great about today with Twitter and Instagram and direct messaging and email. You can reach out to these people. You can find out who they are. You can look on LinkedIn and see who the CEO is. You could look on LinkedIn and see who, it's amazing the information that you can find if you really want to, try and partner with a company. Good. That's a great place to start, Gabe. Oh, it's gonna see. Little GoPro Max. I'm just digging through my hard drive here to see what I had to kind of throw up here on the stream. So this is my perspective at the Allegiant Stadium, which is in Las Vegas, which is amazing. Stadium where the Raiders play. And this is when Fresno State played UNLV in 2020. It was in November of 2020. Shot, didn't move the whole game. Shot from the end zone on a 400 millimeter 2.8 old school prime lens. Love that lens. It's actually a Canon FD mount lens, which when I bought it was already converted to a PL mount, so it fits on my Amira. And then also during this game, the first half I shot with a 2x extender mounted to the lens, and then the second half I shot just straight up 400. And again, with this lens too, I'd play with a little bit at 2.8, but primarily I'm shooting at a 5.6 just to give myself a little bit of a break with the focusing, because shooting at a 2.8 wide open action sports is just a very tall task to do manual focus with, which is of course what that lens is, which is what all my lenses are, is manual focus. By the way, 24 mil G Master Prime. Love this lens for all my Sony stuff. Gabe, if you're in Rhode Island, super late. Hopefully you don't have school in the morning, Gabe. Remove. Nope, remove that. I have some of the car mount stuff on this hard drive too that we just shot this week, but it's in MXF files because I shot with the FS7 and it works with MXF files with the codec I shoot, and yeah. Can I share a 360 video file? This will be funny. Nope, can't. Nope. Anyways, just trying different, see what else I could share on here. All 360. That's funny. Back in the... This is like the old YouTube video. Gabe, that's all good. was one of my favorite YouTube videos to make because it does the same thing that I was just talking about, which is where I could show off and build the camera. And that was, of course, at the beginning of the pandemic. And yeah, it was fun to just dust all that gear off and pull it all out. Okay, so this one is that same 21 by lens, and this is me speaking about, which I have it muted, but this shot, which was the last play of the game, this is one of my favorite shots. Unfortunately, it's not good for Fresno State, but that was a fun game to shoot. Yeah. This is like live on YouTube, watching old YouTube. This is so like, it's like Inception or something. Oh, that was the 400. Also where I broke down. So again, the lens is like, it's got to be almost as old as I am, but I want to say it probably debuted in like the late 80s, early 90s. And then at some point was converted from a Canon FD mount to a PL mount, which is also used by NFL Films. So I bought this lens off of one of my fellow NFL Films freelancers named Mark Allen, who works with me in the Bay Area. He's been shooting for over 40 years for NFL Films, and had a whole bunch of lenses that he no longer uses. And so when I saw that he had the 400 2.8, I was able to buy it off of him, and I'm so glad I did. And so the only other people I see using that lens for football is NFL Films. They've got a 300mm FD and a 400mm FD that have been converted to PL mount. It's actually a universal lens mount, of course, with a PL mount on it. You can switch them out for other ones. And then they commonly run those with 2x extenders attached to the lens. And so I'm just essentially trying to mimic what I've seen over the years with NFL Films and those iconic prime lens, super telephoto prime lens shots. Tyler, yes, I'm still using StreamYard. That was a Facebook message. Yeah, there's some of the footage. That's 800 millimeters off a hi-hat. Love that stuff. I remember when I shot that, I was like, this is going to be a great thumbnail. $11 guys. If you have any questions or want me to do any more lives and have any suggestions for me, feel free to reach out. Hit me DM me on Twitter or Instagram, or down in the comments of any of my YouTube videos, because I look at all the notifications and I read all the comments and questions. So feel free to hit me up. I'm going to head home and get some sleep. Thanks for tuning in, guys. And I'll see you next time. Not even in my garage anymore, which is weird. All right. See you guys.